So James, what is this? What is this for? Just so we know, is this some DCI? I mean, I've been dying to know. Is it just us?
Yeah, it's just it's my personal therapy trying to get over 1987, basically. Yeah.
Are you there yet, man, or what?
No, not yet.
Two great cores. Two amazing performances. One unforgettable night. 30 after 30. The most talked about.
Cornbread, tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, where you started, how you got to Santa Clara.
Originally, I started drum corps through family. We're from the Central Valley, so my mom and family had marched the Commodores. So they kind of broke the family in as far as that goes. And I think they also marched the Princemen. So we had a background in it. I ended up originally trying out for Valley Fever out of Modesto, California. So smaller corps. I think that during the 80s they were pretty good, you know, like 83 or something was their best year, but ended up trying out for them and making the bass line, and then tried out for Freelancers and was unsuccessful to make the cut there, and ended up trying out for Santa Clara in 87. And at that time I had just came back from the Rose Bowl with the Lincoln High School marching band. So it was just out of the world to end up making the Vanguard that particular year.
Jeff.
Yeah. So starting in drum corps, wow. I saw a video in like October of 86 of the PBS broadcast, and never knew drum corps existed. Had no idea. I was in marching band in San Mateo, California. You know, I was a pretty decent sax player, I guess. I didn't really play drums at all. Never really ever thought about playing drums. I saw this video, and I think, Bruce, were you with me in that when we saw that too, or no? I can't remember.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. I think, anyway, so I decided to call up Santa Clara. I just fell in love with the look and everything like that. I called up to see their next tryouts were going on, and I think they were the second or third week that they'd already been going on. So went down to the next practice and not knowing anything, and went in and said, hey, I'd love to try out, you know. And they said, well, okay, well, the B Corps is over here, the tryouts. I said, no, I want to try out for the B Corps. I was pretty musical. You know, I could sight read anything. I'd been playing sax for a long time. And it was just basically getting it from my head to my hands and figuring it out. And so luckily for me, Ken Cater was pretty patient with me, right? And I would just bust my ass, you know, in between practices, and I came back every time, and I was better and better and better every time, and I had the right attitude, and I was lucky. Actually, this was in 86. I'm sorry, this was 83. 84 was my first year with the Vanguard. What am I thinking? Yeah, I'll never forget, you know, Ken coming to me and saying, hey, man, how would you like to play in the cymbal line? I said, I think it would suck. Right? He said, oh, that's okay. You're going to play in the bass line. I went, oh, fantastic. So that was my first and only drum corps experiences with the Vanguard. It's been obviously a hell of a ride. It was fun. Took a little time off in 86 before the infamous year 87, and aged out in 87. And it's been a proud part of my life. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you, started out playing drums at a very early age, marching band, elementary, junior high, high school. And I'll tell you, we're talking about Vanguard, but the first drum corps that really got me was actually the Blue Devils. And I thought they were phenomenal. I didn't even know anything about Santa Clara until like 1981 or 82. And my first time I saw a drum corps show was Pacific Procession in 1983. And the show was getting ready to start, and I'm in the parking lot. And I remember two soprano player and a snare drummer was coming through the parking lot. That snare drummer turned out to be Joey Flores. And he was walking through the parking lot because they're going to play the Star Spangled Banner. And I'm looking at this cat. I'm like, I want to do that someday. I tried out for the snare line, didn't have really what it takes at that time. So then at that point, I played for the Conquistadors. And Will Stewart was my first teacher. He actually was the guy that marched on the N in 1980 and 81. 81, you talk about one of the greatest snare lines that ever existed in Vanguard. They were up for the tenor line in 86. Competition was really hot. And I got cut in the last night. I was so blown away. So those guys all went to Independence High School, and they were all mentored by Joey Flores. So, plus with Brett Capilouti and Steve Lambert, there was a lot of camaraderie with those tenor players. I mean, they were really good, and you pretty much could see the writing on the wall. Not many. There was a tenor trial, but no one was going to make it. So Alan Christensen, he walks up to me and some of the other guys are trying to get a spot, and he just looks at us and he goes, "Guys," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." no one's going to make the tenor line. So I said, okay, I'll try for bass. But for me, I never played bass drum before. I had the chops to play, but I never played a bass drum before. So Ken Cater, legendary bass drum instructor, said, hey, Ken, what I got to do to make this bass line? Show up, do what I tell you to do, and play loud. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And I just kept them going and going. I was going up against like 3 other guys to play number 3 bass. And the last day we were playing, we had like 2 bass lines, because Kent Cater was bringing people in and out to see what fits. And I remember this, 33 years ago, there's a lot of stuff I don't remember, but I remember this day. We were playing, it's like 8:45. We get on the basses. He goes, okay, Brent, Jeff, Sean, Bruce, Chico, get on the bass. And we started playing bass exercises. And I'm thinking, okay, after 5 minutes, we're going to switch out. But we kept playing and playing and playing. And I remember looking behind at Jeff. And Jeff has this smile on his face, like he kind of knew what was going to go on. I had no idea. And then Kent finally says, all right, everybody put down your drums, come over here. And I remember this like it was yesterday. He just looked at us and goes, well, if you guys don't know by now, the guys that were just playing, it's going to be the 87 bass line. And I'm like, damn, I made it. We were that was the beginning of a bass line that was just really funky, a lot of chops, and we did some incredible things, and I am so honored to wear that uniform.
I think you might be the only one who knew that they were in, because I didn't know I was in until finals was over. Ralph never said you're in.
How I got to Santa Clara? Well, when I was growing up in our local marching band, drum corps, of course, was very popular, so we were always modeling our shows after that, and through some kind of inside connection, I got in contact with Gail. Actually, we wrote a letter through the assistance of my percussion instructor, and didn't hear anything. And after a while, I heard back and went down in October of '86, and that's how it happened. It was either that or Blue Devils. It was because Tom Float was coming up and working with us several times with our marching band, writing our shows. So I almost had a line in there, and then I heard back from Ralph. Got a phone call from Ralph, and a couple weeks later I was there. Why did I go to Santa Clara? Well, for the same reasons I've been hearing, we've heard all the comparisons between this, and I mentioned Blue Devils earlier, and Santa Clara. On a going back a couple of years, on a side note, in '85, we had a small group of us went to Madison and hung around there for the finals, and we found Santa Clara's camp, and we had a really big insight into talk to some of the people, met Ralph, and it just seemed like a good vibe, and that's exactly what it was. All the attitude, like the family part, and the quality, and of course Ralph was a big reason. I didn't know anybody else, but that's why I went, because I had a chance to go. Like I heard back from Ralph, and why not? And
honestly, at first it was geography. not knowing drum corps at all, frankly, before I started, they were just like the closest one that I'd heard of before, really. Bruce, you were doing this conquistador thing behind my back. I didn't even know you were doing it. Drum major in the high school band at that point, and just kind of expanding my horizons and tried out for Vanguard. And then once I was there, the vibe, you're almost a rock star in that world, when you're in it, and it's really fun while you're in it. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But why I did it, honestly, it was geography at first.
Valley boy from, California, so I had the benefit of knowing Blue Devils and Santa Clara were kind of next to each other. I wanted to march both corps, but for me, the night that I knew that I wanted to join Santa Clara was 86. I mean, anybody that was at DCI 86 saw how magical SCV was. I mean, it was just like there was a fog coming off the field. It just blew me away. And I knew then, when in the middle of the solo, I was like, damn, I want to march SCV. I had the benefit of marching both corps, but like a lot of my boys have been saying, obviously Blue Devils was known kind of laid back, big jazz band sound. SCV did more, kind of came off to me more as the classical, Phantom Regiment type, drum corps. But as far as the discipline goes, that's what really attracted me to Santa Clara, just the presence, how they carried themselves, behind the scenes. So that was the first night that I knew I wanted to join Santa Clara's when I saw them at finals.
Drum solo, like I said, I heard was in 1982. Everything just kind of fit together. It was just really incredible writing, and that's really one of the biggest things for me that just drew me to Santa Clara. It was just, of course, just the way they looked, the uniform, but just his writing. His writing was just absolutely amazing. I mean, to this day, people talk about his writing, some of the stuff.
You guys, and I have some questions for you, but yeah, you guys and the cadets baseline were kind of the backbone of both sections. Let's talk about Ralph's book and playing Ralph's book and just some different parts that pop to mind for you guys. And then if you want to intersperse some things about Kent Cater too and what he meant to developing the Santa Clara baseline.
Ralph's book, wow. I'll tell you. Ideas when we play into the first time and how everything just the interplay within just the battery and the front ensemble, but it, not only was it I think a lot of our favorite part in particular to play was the in Russian Christmas music, the re-entry in the end, going into that they called it the Pink Floyd bass.
Cornbread, what about you? Give me some thoughts about playing Ralph's book, Kent Cater. What's your favorite part from '87?
I just think, like I say, with Ralph's writing, it's so intricate. Everything kind of locks in. What I like about Ralph is obviously the battery parts would always be really nice. But the front ensemble stuff, I used to like when, if he wasn't working with us individually, he'd always be in the front ensemble and just how everything went off each other. I think one of the coolest parts for me was the little drum solo, the little bass run that we had prior to the drum solo. Just the time sequence of it, how it featured us. us briefly into the drum solo. I think that was the best part for me, as well as the push at the end of the show. We were just kind of leaned over, still letting them have it. I don't think any person in the drum line didn't want to mimic all the snare parts. But when we would break off and everybody, the snare drummers, you guys would be doing your individual solos, we were all practicing the snare licks and the snare parts. Just on the top level to see if you could do it, on a bass drum.
And that kind of lines up, Mike Jones, with what Mookie was doing, and you guys were doing. Same thing. We heard the same thing from Cadets baseline. They were mimicking what the snares were doing.
Yes, that was what was going on at the time. The two bass lines, Santa Clara's and Garfield's, were kind of on the cutting edge of this new playing snare parts on the bass drum for the most part, and then splitting them up and down the line. So that seemed to be happening a lot in '87 with the
What about Kincaid, Cornbread?
Kincaid, just his technique. I think the only time that he really ever had a problem with us as a bass line, and what I can remember, is if we ever played anything unison that wasn't together, that would just irk him the worst. It wouldn't matter to him how technical the part was. We got that right. But if we didn't do something right, it would just, just his demeanor. He wouldn't come yell at you. He was like the silent killer kind of, just sit back, look at you, tell you, look, fix it. You want to fix it.
Well, I've had the pleasure. I started in '84, so I played in Musica Bayhan with him, and basically seeing the drum corps world not knowing how to react to that drum solo at the beginning of it. It was just so out of the norm, and so by the end of the season, everyone seemed to love it a lot because we just busted our ass and made it sound good. But so went from that to in the chops and the drumline standpoint of basically not having an awful lot of chops in '84 and getting more and more chops as a bass line as I've moved along into where we were in '87, where everybody had chops and we could play whatever Ralph wrote, no problem at all. Right? It was not an issue. We'd learn the part usually in about 15 minutes and then pretty much have it down and basically just enjoy the subtleties and the nuances of it. For my favorite, with Ralph, I would have to say, like you were talking about the Pink Floyd section there, Brent, toward the end of the opener. But basically the very end of the show where we're coming, it's such a cool part with all the, when we're rearing back and we're basically blowing hard at the stands there at the very end of the show. Yeah. And just how meaty and how cool and just how together that is. I can't describe it. It's just a feeling that you have. But I think that's probably some of the best writing I've ever heard any drum writer do.
Nice.
Ralph writing, like I said earlier, is one of the reasons why I really wanted to play Santa Clara. It was just different. From anything that I've ever heard. I think many of us felt that way about his writing, just in the whole drum corps world, just the infectious groove that he could just write. And as far as the ensemble and just really syncopated rhythms, just some of the stuff that he could just play. As far as playing in the bass line, we would just play things, put notes right in the middle of other things within the ensemble of the battery. At one part when we were just playing just these incredible things. Also, what's it, the dance of the tumblers? One of the things about Ralph, he would actually write things that, as playing the bass line, you almost have to learn how to play like in melodies. You just, like da 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 da, all those rolls and everything. Just phenomenal. And of course, the great gate at the very end when we were just leaning back, playing as loud as we could, and that was just. You just look at the crowd going crazy, like, dang, we just played that. It was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I have, my favorite part from '87 is from the first bass intro that you guys did. That part, all the way through the chicken head vish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think an underrated part is Brent in the lullaby, where you guys play that, and then it comes up, and Brent does that open roll. Dude, that's nice. That's nice
We were
stuff.
using the puppy mallets.
Yeah.
For that one, yeah.
Yeah, it was just so gritty and clean and nice and shaped very well.
The standard for bass drumming at that time was Santa Clara. So our bass drum line pretty much modeled themselves after what you guys had done years prior.
Wow.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that too. I mean, everybody wanted to march Santa Clara's drum line. I mean, I wanted to march Santa Clara too.
2 great cores. 2 amazing performances. 1 unforgettable night. 30 after 30. The most talked about.